At the height of the Cold War, when the world stood on the edge of nuclear destruction and every decision carried the weight of millions of lives, the United States achieved something so advanced, so precise, and so quietly devastating that its greatest rival never even realized it had already lost a critical layer of security. While the Soviet Union poured resources into building what it believed were impenetrable systems, hidden deep beneath the ocean and protected by both nature and technology, the United States did something extraordinary. It didn't just find a way to observe those systems, it found a way to enter them, to listen to them, and to understand them from the inside. For years, America was not guessing what the Soviet Union might do next. It was hearing it directly, in real time, from conversations that were never supposed to leave the depths of the ocean. And the most astonishing part of all, the Soviet Union had absolutely no idea it was happening. The Cold War was not defined only by missiles, armies, or visible displays of power, but by something far more subtle and far more dangerous: information. In a world where both superpowers possessed nuclear arsenals capable of ending civilization, knowing what your enemy was planning was often more valuable than any weapon ever built. Intelligence became the true currency of power, and both sides understood that the nation that could see more, hear more, and anticipate more would hold the advantage in a conflict where direct confrontation could mean mutual destruction. It was within this silent and invisible battlefield that the United States began searching for ways to go beyond traditional espionage, looking for methods that did not rely on agents or satellites, but on something deeper, something more innovative and far more difficult to detect. At the same time, the Soviet Union operated under a belief that gave it a dangerous sense of confidence. Its military relied heavily on underwater communication cables that connected key naval bases, including a critical line linking facilities in the Kamchatka Peninsula to headquarters in Vladivostok. These cables carried highly sensitive military communications, transmitting orders, strategies, and operational details across vast distances without ever exposing them to the air. Unlike radio signals, which could be intercepted, tracked, or jammed, these underwater lines were considered secure by design. They were hidden beneath hundreds of feet of water, inside a region the Soviets treated as their own protected territory, heavily monitored and defended. To Soviet commanders, these cables represented something close to absolute security, a system so well protected that it did not even require encryption in many cases, simply because no one believed it could be accessed.
But within the United States, that assumption was not seen as a guarantee. It was seen as an opportunity. American intelligence began to question whether security based on geography and confidence alone could truly be trusted, and from that question emerged one of the boldest ideas of the Cold War. What if those cables, hidden deep beneath freezing waters and guarded by Soviet defenses, could still be reached? What if, instead of trying to intercept signals from the sky, the United States approached from the ocean floor itself? It was an idea that sounded almost impossible, requiring not only technological innovation, but also an unprecedented level of precision, stealth, and courage. Yet in the context of the Cold War, where the stakes justified extraordinary risks, it was exactly the kind of idea that demanded to be explored. That idea became reality in the early 1970s when the United States launched a covert mission involving the Navy, the CIA, and the NSA, designed to penetrate one of the most secure communication systems in the Soviet Union. The plan required sending a specially modified submarine deep into the Sea of Okhotsk, a region the Soviets considered entirely off-limits to foreign vessels and protected by surveillance systems placed along the seabed. This was not simply a reconnaissance mission, it was a direct challenge to Soviet control, an operation that required entering hostile waters, avoiding detection, and locating a specific target in an environment where even small mistakes could be fatal. The submarines used in these missions were not ordinary vessels. They were engineered for silence, equipped for special operations, and capable of performing tasks that pushed the boundaries of naval technology at the time. As the submarine moved through the cold, dark waters of the Sea of Okhotsk, it did so under constant risk. The region was surrounded by Soviet territory, heavily patrolled, and monitored with acoustic detection systems designed to identify intruders. Any unusual sound, any unexpected movement could reveal the presence of the submarine and trigger a response that might escalate into a major international incident. Yet despite these risks, the mission continued, driven by the understanding that the potential intelligence gain was simply too valuable to ignore. This was not just about gathering information, it was about redefining what was possible in intelligence operations. When the submarine finally reached its target area, the most dangerous phase of the mission began. Navy divers were deployed into the freezing depths, descending into an environment where visibility was limited, temperatures were extreme, and the margin for error was effectively non-existent. Their objective was to locate the underwater cable, a task made even more difficult by the lack of precise visual references and the sheer vastness of the ocean floor itself. Yet through a combination of training, technology, and determination, they succeeded. They found the cable that carried some of the Soviet Union's most sensitive military communications, resting silently beneath the surface.
What happened next was a demonstration of technological ingenuity that defined the entire operation. Instead of cutting the cable or disrupting its function, which would have immediately alerted the Soviets, the divers installed a specialized listening device designed to wrap around the cable without damaging it. This device recorded the communications passing through the cable, capturing vast amounts of information while remaining effectively invisible to Soviet monitoring systems. It was a solution that reflected not only advanced engineering, but also a deep understanding of how to operate within enemy systems without triggering detection. The success of this installation marked the beginning of one of the most significant intelligence operations of the Cold War. For years, the United States returned to the site, retrieving recorded data and replacing storage systems, maintaining a continuous flow of information from within the Soviet military's own communication network. The intelligence gathered included naval movements, strategic discussions, and operational planning, providing insights that would have been impossible to obtain through conventional means. Perhaps most astonishingly, much of this communication was not encrypted, a reflection of the Soviet belief that their system was secure enough to not require additional protection. This created a situation in which the United States held a quiet but powerful advantage, one that did not rely on visible displays of force, but on knowledge. By understanding the intentions and capabilities of its rival, the United States could make more informed strategic decisions, anticipate actions, and maintain a level of control that extended far beyond what could be seen on the surface. It was a form of dominance that operated entirely in the shadows, shaping the balance of power without ever being publicly acknowledged. For nearly a decade, this operation continued without detection, standing as a testament to the effectiveness of American innovation and execution. But like many of the most successful operations in history, its downfall did not come from technological failure or operational error. It came from within. In 1980, a former NSA analyst named Ronald Pelton revealed the existence of the operation to the Soviet Union, motivated by financial difficulties and personal circumstances. This betrayal exposed the entire mission, leading the Soviets to investigate the cable and ultimately discover the listening device. The discovery was a moment of realization for the Soviet Union, a clear indication that their most secure systems had been compromised for years without their knowledge. When Soviet forces located the device on the ocean floor, it represented more than just a technical breach. It was proof that even their most trusted defenses could be penetrated by an adversary willing to think differently, act boldly, and push the limits of technology. The operation came to an end, but its impact remained, highlighting the true nature of the Cold War as a conflict defined not only by power, but by ingenuity. In the end, the story of this operation is not just about espionage or technology. It is about a deeper principle that defined the entire era. The Cold War was a contest of minds as much as it was a contest of weapons. And in that contest, the ability to innovate, to adapt, and to challenge assumptions often proved more decisive than sheer force. While the Soviet Union believed it had created a system that was beyond reach, the United States demonstrated something remarkable, that even in the most secure environments, even in the depths of the ocean,
there was always a way in for those willing to find it.